Hi, welcome again to Brooklyn Bytes.
Hello.
What's going on? What do we have?
Well, since last time, right, the whole Xbox One DRM issue, kind of did a complete reversal.
Okay, yeah, our last show was E3.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are unhappy about Microsoft's decision with DRM and a bunch of other things. So,
yeah, they heard people's complaints. I guess they hadn't heard it before that, but now they really heard it.
So now I talked about it last time that Microsoft has a lot of money riding on this, and I said that if they notice that they could possibly be losing money and stuff, that they're not going to take a chance because it's too much at stake. So
yeah, it must have been. I mean, it must have been that the pre-orders must have been way skewed between Xbox and PS4.
I mean, you think so?
That had to be a factor. I mean, they must have gotten word back from their their retailers and Amazon and so on to say PS4 is 5-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
And they said, we better do something.
Well, the PlayStation 3 the PlayStation 4 has 3 SKUs, I believe.
I think there were 4 different bundles.
4.
Yeah,
so
right. But even if they added those up,
it's still gonna overpower. I think the main thing is just getting tons of bad publicity everywhere, including Twitter and everywhere else. So
right. Well, I guess one of their failings is that they didn't take control of the situation early on to tell you here's what we're doing, here's definitely what's going on. I mean, it was all through sort of off-camera interviews, and it wasn't really part of their demo. And the other weird thing is that they talked about how easy everything is with the Xbox, how you can just give voice commands and switch so seamlessly between games and TV and all this other stuff. But then there's all this complexity around the games and how do you install them and what can you do with them and how things are suddenly changing. So it was a big jumbled mess, I think, for a lot of people. I even saw people commenting well, you just haven't read it right, and it's that's the problem. You shouldn't have to read these these sites and really try to train yourself to understand what they're doing. I mean, they had to be on point with the message to really tell people this is how it's going to be.
Especially a major change like that.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't think they can just do it right from the jump on a new console. I think they have to let it get out there, have people buy it, and then gradually introduce ways to sort of migrate to that plan. Yeah,
I mean, all right. So I think initially I thought it was a bad idea when they announced this. When was that? 4 months ago?
Yeah, word started getting around kind of early,
and I was like, "This is terrible," and they didn't address it. But by the time E3 rolled around. Now I almost think it's a bad idea that they reversed the decision. I think they should have just stayed with it, ride the course, and see what happens.
They could, just like they just turned it off now, they could turn it off down the road if things weren't working out. But maybe, who knows how much damage would have been done if they had stuck with it.
I guess, but now it changes their whole idea of how the system works.
Right.
So now they're saying, well, everything that we told you in E3 is not going to be anymore. So you're not going to have the family sharing thing, which is kind of a moot point because you can now trade your game and play it on any system. So
I think there's ways they could still do some of that if they wanted to.
I suppose they could. I mean, the indie store games still will be like that. Anything you download is still tied to the account.
They also said that even the full disc games will be available digitally too, through their store. So they could still allow some of that stuff, I guess, but then, the system would have to do all its checks and things like that. So, I don't know. I guess they're going to have to think of a way to get there at some point, because that's clearly where things are going to be going, even if we're not ready right now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of arguments were made about how internet speeds aren't good enough to have to, to be able to do all this stuff, and there's parts of the country that are just not ready for that kind of a thing. But they could incentivize it in some way better than they have been. Instead of telling you all the things you can't do, they should stress those benefits like the sharing and so on. And I don't know, do something crazy. Do something release the game digitally a week before the stores get it or something. Give people a reason to want to go that way.
So do you think this is a big flop? Do you think the machine will catch on with time? I mean, pre-orders are sold out pretty much everywhere.
Right.
So
initial shipments are there's not gonna be a problem
but I'm
there.
thinking long term, next year from now. Do you think we'll have this discussion will Xbox One still be around, or
yeah, I mean,
will it still be a war?
They're a pretty major player at this point. They're here to stay, I think. They can certainly ride out these waves and see where things go. There's definitely core Xbox fans that are going to be, saying, all right, well, it's back to normal.
There already are, yeah.
So,
it's funny.
So yeah, no reason to.
There's some people that are oblivious to the whole thing. They didn't even know there was an issue.
Right. So, yeah, we'll definitely see what happens next. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes.
Yep.
But I guess there's other stuff going on, right?
Yeah, there's always stuff going on. What else?
I had something that I saw that was kind of interesting. I saw a game on Steam that's for sale for the PC that was going for $89.99, and it's a game that's not even done yet. It's a game that's still under development. It's in alpha. So
they're charging you $89.99 for a game that's not released.
Right. I mean, that's
so you're a beta tester.
You're a pre-beta tester. You're an alpha tester.
Alpha tester.
Okay. So you haven't quite hit that beta phase yet. I mean, there is going to be, I think, a beta later on that's going to be a little cheaper. But they're doing it in chunks. They're doing it in phases. And basically they're saying, we'll give you early access to our game. It's called Planetary Annihilation. That's the name of the game. It's a strategy game.
Okay.
And obviously you get to participate in like feedback on the game, and you're almost like an early tester, and you get to sort of shape where things are going to go with it. So of course there's mad outrage over this, like, oh my god, how can they charge so much for a game? And they should be going the other way. They should be charging it less so that you buy in early, and they can secure your money.
Yeah, well,
what's
I don't see the advantage of, why would you?
I guess the
it's
benefits
not even like
are,
a big. I don't think, is it a big name game? I don't play PC.
Not that
games.
I know of. Mm-mm.
So it's not even the benefit of, I get to play it first before everyone else.
Yeah, I think it's just the fact that they're setting sort of a premium level. You do get some stuff for coming in early. You get a lot of the usual digital stuff, art book and soundtrack, and other perks. You get like a unique unit in the game,
and you do get the final version.
And it's
right?
Of course. And you get a key for the actual game when it actually releases. It's supposed to come out by the end of the year. And it'll be cheaper then. I mean, obviously, it'll be like $90 now for the alpha. It's $60 if you want to get in during the beta phase, and then it's going to be even less than that when it's finally done. But this is I guess a way to sort of make people VIPs. They kind of give them early access to the game. If you want to be able to jump in and play right now, this is a way to do it. I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of really not that different from a Kickstarter.
Well, that's the thing.
Except that you're getting your game instantly rather than waiting,
Yeah.
but you just don't have, like Kickstarter, there's different amounts. So
right.
But I mean, usually like on Kickstarter or any of those crowdfundings, the small amounts, like $1, $5, doesn't usually get you much, if anything. So
right, you're just helping the game out.
Yeah.
Because you want to see
90 is a little excessive. But
yeah. Well, that's just it. So there was a Kickstarter for this game.
Oh, there was. Okay.
And there was a $90 level for early access to the game. So they ended up putting it on Steam as well, so even more people can get a hold of it. So they said because there was a Kickstarter and because that was the pledge amount, they had to stick to that dollar amount.
Okay.
So they didn't screw over the Kickstarter funders.
That makes sense.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I guess that's the thing. It's like there's all this sort of backstory to it. So yeah, people shouldn't be freaking out that badly.
It's still a lot, though.
It is a lot. And if you don't like it, if you don't want to pay that much, you just wait for the game to come out.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. In fact, I won't even play the game when it comes out.
I'm sure it's not your kind of game.
No, it's not.
All right, well...
But interesting. It's, people are trying different things these days to get noticed.
Might as well. I mean, certainly if there was, like, let's say it was a really big game. I don't know. Name the big game.
Uncharted.
Right, I don't know. Let's say Uncharted 4 was going to come out in 6 months, but you could start playing it right now.
Yes, people would pay
for a high ticket amount. And you go in with the knowledge that it's not done. There's going to be things that are going to be broken. There's going to be
people would
things...
pay it just to get the YouTube views, because they make money off that.
Right. Well, they probably can't show the game. Or
something. This will be some kind of non-disclosure.
Probably. If you do that, you probably get kicked from the beta or something. Right. Well, yeah. So I'm sure that there's always going to be somebody who's going to spend the big ticket you know, to get in early, cut the line ahead of everyone else. I think that's the lesson. Capitalism at work. Well, I put my money towards some other weird stuff.
Wait a minute. Should I press stop, or is this okay? Is this video game related?
No, this is time to show off some loot.
Oh, okay. You gonna go into the vault?
I'm gonna go into the deep archives.
All right.
I'm going back in time.
It's been a while. What do you have for us?
Like almost 10 years ago, in 2003, it was the 25th anniversary of Space Invaders.
I remember that.
You remember it well, huh?
Yes.
So for PS2, there was a neat little bundle that came out, and it looks something like this.
Cool. What is this?
So this is Space Invaders 25th Anniversary Edition, and it came with a special cocktail table controller. So I'm gonna bust this open.
I don't remember seeing this in Toys R Us.
Yeah, this was a Japanese exclusive. The game itself did come out in Europe, but there was no US release. So this is Space Invaders Anniversary. This comes with 9 different versions of Space Invaders.
So this game also never came to the United States?
This version did not. Nope. But the controller itself is the most interesting thing.
Yeah.
And this is actually
so cool.
Not a controller. I mean, it's a controller, but it's not. There's not a controller in here. You can't plug this into the PS2 directly. You actually have to use a DualShock controller in combination with this thing.
So you're telling me you don't. This is a controller, but it's more like a shell for a controller.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's got a little suction cups.
So they went through all this trouble to create this really cool tabletop replica of Space Invaders.
Yeah, and it opens up, and you drop.
But why would they make? I mean, isn't the rumble gonna shake the thing apart?
I don't know that the game uses rumble, actually.
Oh, that's true.
But yeah, you just get a little left-right knob.
But why not just make it a built-in control?
You would think that would make sense, right? I mean, because this bundle was maybe around, I'm not sure what the new price was. I think I paid around $70 for it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe there's some kind of licensing they had to pay for the technology, the patents and stuff.
This is Taito. They make custom controllers for other stuff, so it's not really too crazy. I mean, you just take your DualShock and you drop it in there.
I'm gonna get that back, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And you run it out the back, and then it actually it's a mechanical sort of thing that actually pushes the actual controller.
Wait.
We'll hook that up properly.
All right.
But it's just interesting to me that they actually.
Is this glass?
No, it's all plastic. So what do you think? I mean, is this like an interesting little... It's like a little cocktail table in your house.
I know. And it's funny because you don't ever see cocktail tables represented in toy. Very few.
Right, it's usually a full stand-up cabinet.
Mm-hmm. It's always the stand-up cabinet. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how this passed me by, but I'm like super jealous you have this thing. It is so cool.
Well, I think surprisingly, the value has stayed pretty flat on this.
Really?
I mean, I think you can get them on Amazon for maybe around $66 or so.
I have to get mine. Oh, okay. So it has the Japanese.
Yeah, it's got all the
instructions
Japanese labels.
So it's a pretty close replica. I think I only played one tabletop, I think, with Space Invaders, and it was 2-player, and it was on the sides here. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how close this is to the original, but it looks pretty darn close. It would have been really nice if this had everything bundled. Like if this was one of those like all-in-one things, and this was like a little screen.
If somebody put a PS2 in there, by now you could probably do that.
The original Game & Watch, like the old Coleco tabletops.
I think there is an electronic version of a cocktail table that actually plays. Yeah. But there you have it.
Cool. So
we'll take a closer look at that.
Yeah, so it has like little grills in here, and the suction cup feet work pretty well because I can barely move this thing around.
All you can do is slide it around.
And you can put like pencils and stuff when you're not using it.
If you have a lot of pencils, yeah.
Pencils, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, this was a no-brainer for me. I'm kind of a Space Invaders nut.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know you like Space Invaders.
I love the aesthetics of the game. I mean, the game's pretty simple. but as shooters go, but it's just the sounds that the game make.
What is your favorite version of Space Invaders?
I like part 2 because I like that the invaders can split in half. Yeah, that's fun.
Good one. Very good.
Yeah, I was surprised when I first saw that.
Now, do you know what comes on this disc? Is it just
it's a lot of
arcade Space Invaders, and that's
in there. There's a couple of different versus modes. There's a couple of new games that are.
So I see like Bubble Bobble, but they're just probably there because they're like the mascots of the company.
We'll fire it up and try it out.
Okay. No arguments here. Since 1978.
Yep.
Wow. Did they ever name the Space Invaders, or they're still just called Space Invaders?
I have not seen names for the individual invaders.
Let's see.
It's a good question.
The game doesn't even fit in here. Come on.
Nope.
Didn't they think this through? There should have been a nice storage spot, like to just slip it under.
That's gonna go on your shelf.
And you can't put a coin in there.
No, there's no coin slot.
No.
It's not functional. But like I said, I think there are other versions that do fake it. It's almost like a little coin bank that you can drop.
It is.
Drop coins into.
We need to break this in. I need to put some cigarette burns on the top. Maybe like rest a few beers and stuff.
Coffee stains.
Cool. Any final words on this thing?
No.
What's that box say?
All this.
I can't read that. I can't understand this.
It's a lot of Japanese text. I guess that's enough Space Invaders.
Okay, let's push that off the edge.
And I guess we'll take a question into account right now.
Yeah, let's ask you. I'll ask you a question this time.
Please ask me a question.
So this is the first time in almost maybe since the 80s that there is a crap load of consoles and systems that are coming out or out right now.
Yeah, it looked like it was thinning out for a while. But now
now we're in full, like, I remember in the 90s, it was like Sega or Nintendo. And then maybe, if you were one of the weird kids, TurboGrafx. So now we have, like 20 choices?
There's so many platforms.
You got the Sonys, the Microsoft consoles.
Yeah, all the big consoles.
Now you have all these Android consoles now. PC, Mac.
PC's hanging in every time.
Handhelds. Like, so I'm wondering, do you feel like there's too many choices now? Like, do you think that this is going to hurt the industry because there's just so many platforms to play on?
I mean, this is not a bad problem to have, right? to have
not really
too many games to play. I mean, this is not really a huge issue.
I'm not complaining. I'm just wondering. I feel like in the 80s the market crashed almost because there was a glutton of bad games, and a lot of it. So I'm wondering if we're almost creeping up to that territory.
Well, definitely, it's going to be a challenge for companies to stay in the game. I'm sure there's going to be some casualties of having all of these different choices and offerings all vying for everyone's attention at the same time. So yeah, there's definitely going to probably be some losers. Who knows who's going to be the first one to fall among the big companies, but certainly some of the small scrapper companies are, might have some issues, especially all these Android consoles coming out. They're going to be struggling to differentiate themselves. There's going to be, at least 5 that I can think of, all doing roughly the same thing, with some differences, but nonetheless, I think to really survive, I think they need to differentiate themselves in some way, and definitely like broaden the market, right? Because let's say you have a group of people that identify themselves as gamers, and everyone is struggling to get all those people's attention. I guess what the Wii did successfully, right, was that it expanded the market. It brought people in who weren't necessarily core gamers. So I guess if they can figure out a way to capitalize on that effect, maybe try to stand apart in some way by doing something different, or just being creating a game out of something that people wouldn't necessarily think is a game. But maybe you have some ideas about this too.
That's one idea, definitely. I often think okay, if you're a company like Capcom and you have a franchise game that sells well, how do you figure out, okay, now we have to release this on 20 platforms? Mm-hmm. How do we get this done?
Right, yeah, you see some of the
because
really
how
big
much
titles.
money do you really want to put in this game? Like, are you going to get your return on investment?
You see 8 different SKUs for some titles.
I know.
By the time they get their way
that's a lot of resources.
Especially now that we're transitioning, where the last gen is still relevant, and they don't want to ignore all of those huge install bases, but meanwhile they want to be first on the new systems too.
And people expect updates now. It's not like, in the old 16, 8-bit days,
right.
You can release a game and you don't have to worry about it if something was buggy or glitched or something.
Yeah, right. They got to keep...
But now it's like you have to support all these old games now, too. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I think definitely mobile, obviously. It's continuing to grow because it's with people everywhere they go. Mm-hmm. Especially if it's phone based or tablet based or something like that. Dedicated handhelds have always kind of had that space, but that was something that you didn't necessarily have to take with you when you left the house. Your phone's always going to be there, so that's always going to be and obviously there's going to be lots of people that are buying phones who aren't gamers. So if you could figure out a way to appeal to those people to get them to buy your games, then that's a
the new generation of kids growing up now are all connected with phones.
Yeah,
and that's probably the direction that they're going to end up in because that's what they're used to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just I don't know.
Or it might still branch into 2 categories, kind of like books and comic books kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's tough to say.
Well, the funny thing is when we saw the announcement for iOS controllers,
yes,
I saw I saw articles saying, hey, guys, you might think this is nothing, right? But combine this with Apple TV or something, and you've got a game console pretty much. And you saw a lot of scoffing and a lot of derision from core gamers who said, there's no way, that's not going to provide a high fidelity experience like I'm used to, and meanwhile people can dismiss it if they like.
They're missing the point.
I guess there's whole new worlds that could open up as a result of these new platforms coming into existence. So yeah, I think we'll see the new ones continue to grow, and I think some of the old ones, they'll lose ground a little bit, but they'll still obviously be relevant.
Now, do you feel that Jax still has a market making these 5-in-1 Pac-Man Namco Classic controllers and stuff?
Yeah, if they're cheap enough, sure. They might have to sell them for $20 or something, but
even though you can download it for $1 or $2 on an app on your phone.
Yeah, well, not everybody. I guess still to this day, not everyone's gonna have a $400 phone that can run games.
That's true.
Or whatever, whatever it is. Those are always going to be cheap alternatives to having a real full-blown console. But yeah, I guess there's always a market for that. It's either that or buy a used Wii or something.
Yeah.
For not much more.
Right.
So that's always going to be around.
Right.
Well, anyway.
So let's talk about a movie we saw.
Yeah.
And that was Resident Evil Damnation.
Damnation, yeah. It was a CG movie.
Also called Biohazard.
Mm-hmm. For Asian audiences.
For the Asian audiences out there.
Yeah.
Well, they might have tuned in because they saw this Asian console, which I can't keep my eye off of for some reason. It's just that cool. But yeah, so the movie, what did you think?
So this movie was all CG, came out in 2012. I thought it was interesting. This one's the main characters. It's got Leon S. Kennedy and Ada Wong from the Resident Evil franchise, right? They find out that bioweapons are being used as soldiers, and they're there to investigate some conflict. It's got a mix of different Resident Evil games, right? It's got some stuff from RE2. It's got some stuff from RE4.
I never played really 5. I just played through the demo of it, and I didn't play 6. So I still got a lot of those references that they were making.
Yeah. But overall, I thought the action was really good in this movie. I really enjoyed the
it was definitely an improvement.
The action scenes I thought were really well done,
especially the end part.
The final battle.
That was good.
There was a good final battle.
Even then,
in this game and this movie.
because they're just like the third one, I believe now.
Second or third.
Second
Not
or
sure
third.
which. Mm-hmm.
And so I saw the first one, and I wasn't that. I don't even know if I sat through it all. I thought it was.
Yeah.
I wasn't impressed. But this one, I thought the voice acting is a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually the voices from Resident Evil 6 video game, so they did carry over the people who did the voices for the US game anyway.
Right.
And I just feel like it feels like a long cutscene for the game, which is not a bad thing, but
yeah, sometimes you want to see those things in like higher quality than what the game can produce.
Yeah, it is a little higher quality.
But I don't know. I mean, the funny thing is that like I feel like maybe some of the games that are coming out now actually had like slightly better animation than this movie did. Like a lot of the facial expressions and stuff were kind of wooden. I thought for such a late CG film, they could have had a little more expressive characters.
It's true. It did seem a little. Usually, like didn't feel like a big blockbuster release. It felt like a made home for video, made to video.
Yeah, I mean there were a lot of talky bits too.
Where
it was just characters standing around talking,
doing nothing. Yeah.
And I'm like, they're not really leveraging the CG like advantages. Like you could do things with CG that you can't do with a normal movie, or that it would be a lot more expensive to have like live action versions of the same thing. So I don't know. I feel like they could have spiced it up a little bit. Maybe.
I'm sure they had no budget to work on it. It might have just been scraps from the game that they didn't use.
Could be, maybe. And much like the live action movies too, it was very like horror action versus like a survival horror type of setting. And the games have been trending that way too, where it's just there's more like it's more military style action versus these horrific creatures, not so much that it's like
no one seems to be scared of these creatures
right.
anymore.
Everyone takes it for granted that these monsters are in this world apparently. Not too many zombies. You have a few of those plaga infected,
the plaga tentacle faces,
right? But besides that, not so much in like the horrifying zombie setting. But overall, I think it's worth checking out. Definitely would.
I enjoyed it. Actually,
would recommend it for any fans of the series.
I'm a Resident Evil fan, despite not playing the last two games. But I do enjoy the movies, the live action movies, and I do enjoy the game. So this CG film was good. I'm not big on CG, also, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's available on like every format you can think of. So we picked it up free on Crackle.
Yeah, right. I was going to say we watched it on the Roku over the Crackle channel. And it was right
freebie,
there.
But I know it's on Netflix and Amazon and everything else. So.
Yeah, we actually got to test the movie playback of the streaming feature. It's got a few commercials inserted into the video stream. Yeah. And sometimes it didn't quite recover from the commercial. We had to restart the video a couple of times.
I don't know whose fault that was.
Yeah, but it kept its place. Like we were able to resume pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, so overall, thumbs up from me.
Thumbs up. I would say don't rush to see it.
Yeah.
You may not like it, but if you're a fan of Resident Evil, you should go see it. If not, don't worry about it.
Right. All right, well, that's cool.
It's not bringing anything new to the table here.
Yeah, well, that's it's Resident Evil.
But this is new to the table.
If you can lift it.
Because I know we're pretty much done here. So I cannot wait to play this thing.
It's fired up.
So, any last words?
That's all I've got.
Okay. So long, everyone.
Thanks for joining us.